How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital.
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the there's no place to hide. I'm burning in the what have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the there's no place to hide. I'm burning in the this is the final sweet dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? Travel the world and the seven seas. Everybody's looking for something. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to get used by you. Some of them want to use you. Some of them want to be out you.
Who the fuck is Karlyn? She's just some sweet lady. She's like in a knitting. She does like a knitting stream. She's like a knitting YouTuber. She does knitting.
Can we grow up a little bit and
Alt
not
Girl
be
sent $200.
retarded?
Have you
Please.
seen the work of Karlyn Borysenko? Anti-commie cult leader and is obsessed with looking at what actual far-left communists are talking about and organizing today, infiltrating them. They infiltrated the universities, schools, media. She has the receipts to back it up. Primary source evidence. Infestation is dire and she calls Republicans idiots eating slop. Agree.
Thank you for the big super chat. Yeah, oh, I know Karlyn B. She's solid. She's funny. I like
great-
Won't anybody help us? What are we running for? When there's nowhere we can run to anymore. We can't afford to be innocent. Stand up and face the enemy. It's a do or die situation. We will be invincible. And with the power of conviction, there is no sacrifice. It's a do or die situation. We will be invincible.
And lastly, we ask that there be no recording or streaming of today's sessions from the floor. And any disruptive behavior in today's session will result in being removed from the call.
We please ask that there will be no recording or streaming of today's sessions from the floor. Any disruptive behavior today could result in being removed from the call. So, just be a nice person. So with the little housekeeping things out of the way, let's jump right in.
Again, we ask no recording or streaming of today's session. And we ask that there be no recording or streaming of today's session from the floor. Any disruptive behavior in today's session will result in being removed from the call.
What up, guys? What up? What up? What up? Happy Wednesday. It's Wednesday, right? I'm pretty sure it's Wednesday. It's Someone tell me it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, right? This week has been crazy. This week has had so much stuff going on it already. Okay, it is Wednesday. Excellent. I know what day of the week it is. You know, it's a good start. It's a good start. It's a good start. How's everyone doing today? Well, listen, it has been a big day, and one of the biggest things that's happened is that sadly and tragically there has been another ICE shooter. And it's kind of like I don't really know why we're even questioning this happening at this point. You know, I infiltrated the Revolutionary Socialism Conference a couple weeks ago. You guys might remember that. Some of you were around for that. We have a lot of new people on the channel, so some of you might not know this, but a couple weeks ago, before the infamous Fox News appearance, I went inside a live Revolutionary Socialism Conference. It was 2 days long. We recorded all of it. We watched all of it, and it was great. And, you know, I released a clip from that conference today. I have so many clips to release from that conference. That was the conference where we got the Texas State University faculty member on video talking about overthrowing the government. And I released that clip. And then the shit hit the fan and Charlie Kirk got assassinated and I had to go undercover with Antifa. And then I was on Fox News and then all this other stuff was happening. So I have only released a couple of clips of the treasure trove of clips that I have from the Revolutionary Socialism Conference that I went undercover with the community a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, it's only 12 hours long. We watched 12 hours of socialism in a weekend. Yes, that Salon tweet was real. Yeah, that was real. That was real. You can refer to the other video. You can see it on the screen right there. Karlyn reads the Salon communist hit piece about her. If you want to know more about the Salon article, you can find that clip over on my Substack. You can find it on the YouTube channel. It was hilarious. It was the best. I have truly arrived now that I have been called a fascist and a far-right activist by Salon.com. You know, however will I recover from this? But apart from that, there is actually more important stuff to talk about. So on this, when I went inside this Revolutionary Socialism Conference a couple weeks ago, I got a whole bunch of clips and I released one of those clips today. And to be quite frank, I am shocked that this clip has not gone more viral so far. I'm genuinely shocked. You know, when socialists tell you who they are, you want to believe them. And I just want to make sure people have seen this because I don't think when I uploaded this clip to YouTube, I don't think notifications went out because for some reason, and again, I am literally giving you a trans communist talking about arming themselves in a secretly recorded video. And it's like, I still can't get people to click on it. I still can't get YouTube to serve the content to people. So I just want to make sure people saw this clip because, well, you know, it kind of gives the quiet part away out loud.
So I just kind of want to like share how I'm feeling and maybe bounce off maybe bounce a question off of folks, some of our speakers. But when it is like getting to a place like LA where they're actively under occupation by the military, like at what point do these community what is it, community security like groups, at what point do they arm up, like to arm themselves? And I guess like I don't know, like that's just kind of what's going through my head. But yeah, I don't know.
So that clip was from the Revolutionary Socialism Conference 3 days before Charlie Kirk got shot. And I have a bunch more clips like this, man. I have a bunch more clips of them talking about overthrowing the government. I have a bunch more stuff I haven't released yet. And the reason is I just haven't had time to make the clips, to be honest. They will be coming out, but this is not like really a super time sensitive thing. This was actually one of the reasons I showed this to you guys is this was actually in a panel at the conference specifically about anti-ICE organizing. Anti-ICE organizing is a priority for the far left. Being able to identify ICE, being able to create these community organizations. So a lot of leftists right now are basically they go into communities and they create these signal groups for the communities, and they're specifically using Signal and not Telegram for some reason, and I don't quite know why they chose Signal, but they're very prone to using signal groups where they're putting everyone in the community in a signal group, and then if someone spots an ICE agent or something like that, they're messaging out to the signal groups. They're trying to get everyone in the community to come out to prevent people from getting deported and stuff like that. And so this person is in the Seattle Revolutionary Socialists, which is a group that we watch quite a bit because they just say the quiet part out loud so much. Steve Lee from the Seattle Revolutionary Socialists is like one of our favorite people. Oh, Signal is more secure and private than Telegram. Well, that would explain it. So this is a person in the Seattle Revolutionary Socialists that he was basically, this person was not on the panel in this session. This person was basically speaking up in the Q&A session where they have the ability to like have discussion and stuff like that, saying, hey guys, when are we going to arm ourselves when we're doing this ICE stuff? Now, I'm not suggesting, and I want to be very clear about this, salon.com, for when they take me out of context, I'm not suggesting that this person specifically is arming themselves and going out and trying to shoot people. I'm not saying that. This person asked a question, though, that I think is worthy of public notice because the far left is actually asking the question and having the conversation. Is it time to arm ourselves in these anti-ICE actions? And that's what we care about. And part of the reason we care about it is, of course, there was just another ICE shooter literally today. There was another ICE shooter literally today, where this person basically shot up an ICE facility in Dallas, Texas, and he killed a couple of people. And ironically, the people he killed were the immigrants. It wasn't even the ICE officers that they killed. But, of course, the first question we want to ask is this person a far leftist? Because we never want to make the assumption that they are, guys. We hinge into reality on this channel. I was one of the first people to come out and say that I didn't think Charlie Kirk's assassin was part of the militant, violent, queer Marxist far left. And the reason I didn't think that is because there was no evidence that that person was connected to these subcultures. And that person was more like, kind of a mentally ill person that maybe, had a lot of problems. But that person was not part of, I firmly believe that Charlie Kirk's assassin was not part of Antifa. They were not part of the queer militant far left. And that is a hill I will die on. And I think it's important that we are able to identify who is in these groups and who's out of these groups. I think it's critical because there kind of seems to be another little subculture developing of these trans people that are not actually on the far left, but they're medicating and they're becoming mentally ill and then they're shooting something up. It's important that we're able to identify what that subculture actually is in a much more nuanced way, because we're not going to be able to deal with it if we can't identify it. So I hinge into reality. I never assume that these people are part of Antifa, except that Joshua John, who is the person that shot up the ICE facility, kinda, sorta, is probably an Antifa. Okay, I'm gonna say it. Joshua John is absolutely an Antifa, and so we know that because of the artifacts related to him. So the first thing I saw about the ICE shooter in Dallas was this photo, and I said, "Oh yeah, he kind of looks like I would expect Antifa to look." And then there surfaced an online profile of him with a very, very communist looking photo, and then you go, okay, and then you find out that the gun he used was essentially the gun they used in the Russian Revolution with the Bolsheviks. So that's a little bit fishy, and the bullets had anti-ICE carved into them. And of course, we know that anti-ICE is one of the major priorities for Antifa, and we're going to talk a lot about that today. And so of course it does look like that he is actually in Antifa. So I feel comfortable saying this person was a violent militant on the far left that was actually a part of Antifa. Because the reason I'm comfortable saying that is what the evidence backs up. We don't make stuff up here that's just convenient for the narrative. We always make sure we're hinging into reality, because that is why my stuff is so accurate when all the conservative influencers don't know what they're talking about. Some person here also found Joshua's mother on Facebook, and I usually don't like to bring the family into these things if I'm honest about it, but since this person is a school administrator, his mother's a school administrator. And look at the types of things that she's following on Facebook: call to activism, the resistance, and the democratic socialists. Imagine my shock. Imagine my shock. And then we found out this, and I actually thought that this was really interesting, in that Joshua John does have a voting history with the Democrats. But you know what was interesting about this to me is Joshua John has cast one vote. This is his voting record. He's cast one vote. That vote was in the Democratic primary in 2020. Who do you guess that vote was for? Does anyone want to guess who Joshua John probably voted for in the Democratic primary in 2020? Does anyone want to take a guess in the chat of, I think we can take a pretty reasonable guess of who Joshua John voted for in the Democratic primary. Yeah, he voted for Bernie. He voted for Bernie. I promise you, he voted for Bernie, and he hasn't voted since. And the lack of votes since the Democratic primary vote in 2020 is significant. And this will be another pop quiz for the chat. Why am I saying his lack of votes since his 2020 vote for Bernie Sanders is significant? We not only want to look at what socialists are doing, guys, we also want to look at what socialists are not doing. Joshua John has not voted in any election according to his own voting record since the Democratic primary of 2020, where we can be pretty sure that he voted for Bernie Sanders. Why is that important? Because Antifa doesn't vote. Antifa doesn't vote. The far left does not believe in electoral politics. They don't vote. So there is a reason that we're not seeing a voting record. And my guess is, my hunch is, and we'll see if this bears out, that Joshua John was raised in a lefty family. His mother's a Democratic socialist. He also had those tendencies. He voted for Bernie Sanders in 2020 when Bernie got completely and totally screwed over by the Democratic Party, and probably other stuff happened as well. Joshua John radicalized to the militant, violent far left, the revolutionary far left, and that is why you have not seen a vote from him since, because revolutionary socialists do not believe in elections. They do not believe in voting. They flat out tell their members, do not vote for the Democrat, do not vote for the lesser of two evils. This is why we haven't seen a vote from him since. So that's definitely part of our evidence as well. I feel really comfortable saying this guy's a member of Antifa. And quite frankly, the stuff we're going to look at on the channel, you guys are going to see that Antifa's gearing up. They're not gearing down. We covered this a couple days ago. We covered a Crime Think article where basically they were responding to Donald Trump. It's called Make Ready, Safeguarding Our Movements Against Repression. This is their response to Donald Trump declaring them a terrorist organization. I covered this on the channel on Friday. You can find a clip on the channel. You can also find it on the Substack if you want review. Essentially, what this document says is that Antifa is not actually worried about Trump declaring them a terrorist organization. And if anything, they're going to do more direct action. If anything, they're going to get more aggressive. Okay? And so I think that we're going to end up seeing more violence, not less violence. And that is my bet. And we're going to continue to talk about that. But I do also want to note that Trump has released a statement on this. Trump is now issuing another executive order. Now, as you guys know, I do not believe that Trump's executive order around Antifa being a terrorist organization is going to be effective, mostly because there's no definition around what Antifa is. And the reality is I know people like to say this as a joke because they like to point to Rose City Antifa. Rose City Antifa is one of maybe over 1,000 Antifa cells nationwide, and it's the only one that conservatives know about. Pop quiz for the chat. Why are conservatives only ever talking about Rose City Antifa when they're talking about Antifa. Why is that? Because there are, I promise you, there are over probably 1,000 Antifa cells nationwide. Why is it that Rose City Antifa specifically, which is in Portland, Oregon, is the only Antifa cell that is ever mentioned by the far left? Because it's the only one they know the name of. Most Antifa groups do not have Antifa in the title. That's just reality. Rose City Antifa has Antifa in the title, but it is a rare use of an Antifa group with Antifa in the title. Now, there are other Antifa groups with Antifa title in the two, with Antifa in their titles as well, but they are few and far between. And it is much more common to call themselves things like distros or info shops. Those are propaganda distribution outlets, but they do other things too. They might call themselves collectives. They call themselves anything under the sun. There is no standard naming convention when it comes to Antifa. And so because there is no definition around how to identify Antifa, and I am completely and totally convinced that the Trump administration has no clue about this. They have absolutely no clue that you can't just say that everyone on the far left is Antifa, because that's not true. And that's not going to hold up in court, by the way. The ACLU is going to be all over their ass on that. If Trump just starts declaring that people are part of Antifa when they have no definition around what it actually means to be an Antifa, they're going to get taken to court and they're going to lose, and it's not even going to be hard. The ACLU is already preparing to do this. So I don't think that the Trump executive order as it stands right now is actually going to be effective in deterring Antifa, because there's no definition in it. And listen, I want Trump to be successful on this. I thought section 1 of the executive order was awesome. The rest of the executive order had a lot to be desired. And so I do hope that's something they update and they fix. But Trump seems ready to gear up right now to issue another executive order. He posted this on True Social earlier today. I have been briefed on the deadly shooting at the ICE field office in Dallas, Texas. It has now been revealed that the deranged shooter wrote anti-ICE on the shell casings. This is despicable. The brave men and women of ICE are trying to do their jobs and remove worst of the worst criminals out of the country, but they are facing unprecedented increase in threats from Antifa, violence and attacks by deranged radical leftists. This violence is the result of the radical left Democrats. So look at this. Look at this. Do you guys want to know why I say Trump doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about when it comes to Antifa? Because Trump just called Antifa deranged radical left, excuse me. Well, no, I read that wrong. Hang on. Wait, no, here it is. Radical left Democrats. I was right. Trump just called Antifa radical left Democrats. You expect me to believe that Trump knows what he's talking about when it comes to Antifa, when Trump seems to believe that Antifa are Democrats? I just showed you guys. The Antifa shooter hasn't voted in the primary since the primary in 2020, where he probably voted for Bernie Sanders. There's a reason that the Antifa shooter has not voted since the primary in 2020, because Antifa doesn't vote. And he probably got radicalized to the far left between that time he voted for Bernie Sanders in that primary and now. Antifa hates Democrats, Trump. Antifa hates Democrats, and Democrats don't like Antifa. They do not work together. They are not the same thing. So I have no expectation at all that Trump or anyone around him knows what the F they're talking about when it comes to the far left, because Trump is still referring to Antifa as radical left Democrats. However, let's read the rest of this. I'm going to update Trump's tweet to make it actually correct. This violence is the result of Antifa, who are anarcho-communists and who don't vote for Democrats at all, constantly demonizing law enforcement, calling for ICE to be demolished, and comparing ICE officers to quote-unquote Nazis. The continuing violence from the radical left terrorists in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's assassination must be stopped. ICE officers and other brave members of law enforcement are under grave threat. We have already declared Antifa a terrorist organization in an executive order that's not going to hold up in court. And I will be signing an executive order this week to dismantle these domestic terrorism networks. So Trump has yet to define what Antifa actually is, define what it means to be a member of Antifa, but he promises, pinky swear, trust us, bro, that he's going to dismantle the national network of thousands of Antifa cells, most of which are not called Antifa. Yeah, I totally believe that's going to happen. That definitely. I believe that this is absolutely going to happen. Great job, Trump. Okay. I'm calling on all Democrats. Again, he's confused, to stop the rhetoric against ICE and America's law enforcement. They're not Democrats, Trump. The Trump administration is fully committed to backing law enforcement, strong borders, securing our homeland, deporting violent illegal criminals, and fully rooting out left-wing domestic terrorism that are not Democrats, that are Antifa, completely different thing, that is terrorizing our country. Thank you for your attention in this matter. Now, Trump is not the only retard on the right now. Tim Pool also proving his retardia again. You know, people tell me to try to go on Tim Pool's show all the time, and my answer is always no. Flat no. I have no interest. Me going on Tim Pool's show would be like, I'm like teaching a college level seminar about socialism and communism, and Tim is coloring with crayons over in the corner trying to draw a hammer and sickle or something. It's kind of like there's no conversation for me and Tim to have. I can't. There's no way. I would end up yelling. Tim would end up crying. I would probably stomp off. Everyone would be just like focused on how I look, not about what I say at all. It wouldn't be a good experience for me. It wouldn't be a good experience for Tim. It's better if we just remain on our own separate sides of the internet, and I get to hang out with the high IQ people that actually care about the left, and Tim can continue to hang out with the low IQ retards who have the Dunning-Kruger effect, where they think they know what they're talking about, but they actually have no effing idea. Tim says the ideology motivating these attacks are mainstream Democrat. How long has Tim been covering the left? Didn't Tim become famous because of Occupy Wall Street? How long has Tim became famous? What, like 15 effing years ago or something, with Occupy Wall Street, and he still hasn't figured out that Antifa are not Democrats? Bro, I started covering the far left 5 years ago. How is it that I'm further ahead than like everyone else talking about it on the internet? I am still genuinely shocked at this, and it quite frankly really pisses me off, because I wish there were actually people I could talk to on the internet about this, but there is no one. I'm sorry, there is no one that's anywhere close to their understanding of the far left as I am, and I'm no longer afraid to say this. Because when I see Tim Pool saying this is the result of mainstream Democrats, I'm like, you morons. This has nothing to do with Democrats. Has nothing to do with it at all. No, Andy No doesn't listen. He ignores evidence he doesn't like, and Andy No has been lying to his audience for a while. I keep telling you guys this, and listen, I have a great deal of respect for the work that Andy No's done. I have a great deal of reverence for the fact that Andy No has been physically hurt by Antifa. I don't take any of that away from him. There's a lot of Andy No's work that is very, 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 very good. His book is very good. A lot of his older coverage is very good, but Andy No now is not hinged into the far left. Andy No is living in London, and he's not even leaving his house, and therefore he is not actually hinged into reality on the far left. I've been sending Andy No evidence for years that he ignored, and then he started lying to the public about this Trantifa thing. Trantifa isn't real. There is a militant queer Marxist arm of the far left, but it's not Trantifa. Trantifa is a made-up word. It's not real. I've talked about this in other streams. You can go watch my introduction to queer Marxism if you want me to break it down for you. It's on the channel. It's also on the Substack, totally free. But like, I can't talk to Andy No because Andy No doesn't want to look at evidence, and it sucks. It actually sucks. It actually is infuriating to me because I have the receipts. I have the DMs. I was sending Andy No evidence from the actual real world that he just completely ignored and deflected and obfuscated, and it sucks. It sucks. I wish more people took this seriously. The ABC attack over Jimmy Kimmel, the anti-ICE attack in line with MSNBC. Tim thinks the anti-ICE people are in line with MSNBC. Whatever. So guys, since no one else on the internet is hinging you into the real far left, I'll do it. We have a couple documents we're going to look at today on the channel. And I did see a bunch of super chats, and I will read the super chats in a second. Thank you guys for that. I just want to tell you what we're doing on the show today, okay? And then we're going to get into it. We have a couple documents that we're going to be reading on the channel today. Both of these documents come from a website called CrimeThink. CrimeThink, I'll show you the homepage actually. CrimeThink is the publishing arm of Antifa. It's not the only publishing arm. There are many. Antifa is a highly decentralized organization, but CrimeThink is one of the biggest and most well-known and most far-reaching publishing houses of Antifa. Okay? And so how Antifa works is Antifa is a highly decentralized organization where you have cells literally all over the country. It is completely flat. There is no hierarchy. There is no leadership. So how do you communicate and coordinate across a completely decentralized network in which there is no leadership? You do it through publishing stuff on anarchist websites that then get disseminated down into all of the different cells, and everyone reads it voluntarily. So if you want to know what is coming with Antifa, you read CrimeThink. CrimeThink will tell you what they're doing. CrimeThink will tell you what they're thinking. CrimeThink will tell you their strategy. These are documents that many, like a lot of people on the far left read, and this is what informs their behaviors, and this is what informs their perspective, okay? We're talking things like manifestos, communiques, after action reports. They do reports about, we went to this protest, or we did this direct action, and we did this thing. So CrimeThink is an excellent resource if you want to actually hinge into reality with primary source evidence about what the real far left is doing. So we're going to read 2 articles today on CrimeThink, and we're going to talk about them. The first article that we're going to read was literally just posted yesterday. It's called ICE Out of Illinois, ICE Out of Everywhere, a report from the blockades at the Broadview facility. So this is an article that Antifa has put together, basically saying, here is what we're doing at the ICE facility in Chicago, and here is what we have learned from the ICE facility in Chicago. So this is a direct report from Antifa, who are protesting in Chicago right now, so we can actually see what they're doing. I literally just told you. Go to CrimeThink. There are a million other places as well. I literally just told you. The other article we're going to read is called A Demonstrator's Guide to Operational Security: Fighting Back, Staying Safe. This was published a little less than a month ago, so this is just slightly less new. But I want you guys to get an idea of what Antifa is telling people who are out at protests and demonstration. This is a highly tactical article where they say, if you're going to be a protester in one of these things, here's what you need to do. And they teach highly practical skills like, how do you make a mask using a t-shirt? So Antifa teaches basically their people lots of illegal things. They teach them how to break laws. They teach them how to break into buildings. They teach them how to cut closed circuit television. They teach them how to disconnect phone lines. They teach them the best way to use a crowbar. I'm not kidding. I have all these documents. I collect their documents. I collect their propaganda. They teach all sorts of illegal shit. And so we're going to get a look inside of that, looking at this document to see specifically what are they telling people to do when they go to protests. So we're going to read those 2 documents on the show today. I hope you guys are here for it. That's what we're doing. Let me just grab some super chats before we dig into it. Adam says, thank you for your good work exposing the truth. Thank you, Adam, for the super chat. Adam also became a member of the channel. I really do appreciate that, Adam. Thank you. Leo Gang sent in a super sticker. I appreciate that. How dare you? Stay safe. You're on target. Yeah, thank you. I really do appreciate it. I'm trying my best. Just saw a video by Liz Wheeler saying who's behind Antifa, like she knows. I haven't watched it yet. You know what? Listen, I like Liz. Liz has had me on her show before. Liz doesn't know what she's talking about when it comes to Antifa, though. I'm sorry, she just doesn't. I say that I think she's a really sweet woman, and I think she does a fairly good job. But you know, maybe I'll give her video a watch. I hope I'm wrong, by the way. I always hope I'm wrong when I say I don't think that person knows what they're talking about. I actually do genuinely like Liz Wheeler. She's always been good to me, so I'm not going to shit talk her or anything like that. But the fact of the matter is that a lot of these conservative influencers, they just don't know, and I wish they would listen, but they don't. So I'll take a look at that video at some point. I did see she was doing that show. Catherine, thanks for the super chat. I'm late for class. Hopefully I didn't miss important information. Not yet. We're just getting into it. I hope your day is well. Crazy time to be alive. The world has gone insane. Ain't that the truth, Catherine? Ain't that the truth? Heard they're going to use the old Klan law to go after Antifa. I hadn't heard that, Will My Finger Do. Okay, that's a very sassy screen name. I hadn't heard that, but I will take a look into it. That'll be breaking news if you're right about that. Hey, thanks, Murphy's Pool. Thank you. Murphy's Pool with the most intellectual of contributions. As always, that's why we love him. Guys, before we get into the articles, if you're not yet a supporter on my Substack, I hope I will earn your support today. This is how I fund the work I do, guys. I am not paid by any political organization. You don't have to deal with any political narrative when you are following my work, because my only job is to show up and to tell you guys the truth and to show you what's going on using primary source evidence and receipts, things that you guys can access, you guys can read along with. Don't ever take my word for something. I will never say pinky swear, trust me, bro. I will always give you the evidence so that you can look at it and decide what you think about it. If you appreciate what I do, please make sure you support my work on Substack for $8 a month, $80 a year. That is how I fund what I do, by people just like you who think this is important and appreciate the effort I put into it. You can also send in super chats to the channel. If you want to do that, you can also become a channel member. You can buy my merch. You can buy my books. All sorts of links in the description below. So lots of ways to support the work I'm doing. And I really do appreciate you guys allowing me to do this for you. Karlyn, could you please tell us who you think has any clue about Antifa? This one right here, me. Listen, I'm not going to say that Andy No doesn't understand anything about Antifa. He does. There are things that Andy No does get right about Antifa. I'm not saying that every single thing Andy No says is wrong. That's just not true. Andy No does understand a lot. I think that the people like Katie Davis and Honey Badger Mom that are outside, that are doing coverage, Jonathan Cho, I think, understands. I think there are people who do boots on the ground coverage, like Jonathan Cho, like Honey Badger Mom, like Katie Davis, who are outside the Portland ICE facility. I think that a lot of them really do understand what they're talking about. Mostly my preference is to get information from people who are directly on the ground, who are in, like, they're seeing these people in real life, they're interacting with them in reality. Now, you always have to be careful though, because if someone works for an organization like Turning Point USA, they still have a narrative that they do need to follow. So you won't get the best interpretation or analysis from those people, but always just like, guys, ultimately, always, no, not Mike Benz. Veto on Mike Benz. Veto, 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 veto. And the reason I say veto on Mike Benz is I saw Mike Benz earlier today posting about one of the articles I just showed you about on CrimeThink, and he completely lied to his audience. Mike Benz took a paragraph from one of the CrimeThink articles, twisted it completely out of context, and said, look, guys, Antifa are liberals. I swear to God, I'll show it to you. I'll show it to you right now. Hang on. I'll show it to you. I posted about it on Twitter this morning. I was so disappointed because a lot of people have said, Karlyn, what about Mike Benz? And I was like, well, I don't really know that much about him. Let me see. Shoot. It's taking me just a second to actually find this, but I do want to show it to you guys. I tweeted it earlier this morning. I wanted to like Mike Benz. I really, really did. But his interpretation of this Antifa article is beyond wrong. It's just wrong, and I'll show you why. Hardly ever get to catch you live. Hey, Rachel, good to see you. Look at this. Mike Benz in this post is saying, oh, hang on, let me make it bigger, not smaller. Antifa appears to concede their grassroots groups are actually astroturf from the top down by massive liberal institutions and fundraising platforms, and they're fretting equally about both elements that the structure is being targeted. That's not what the article says. That's not what the article says at all. Mike Benz is overtly lying. He's either lying or he's getting something so incredibly wrong that it's just not even funny. But let me show you what the article actually says. So he took this section out of a larger article, and we read this article on the channel. We read this on Friday. You guys can find the clip on the channel. You can find the clip on the Substack. In this paragraph, they're talking about what Trump is doing. They're talking about the Trump administration. Look, it even says it right here. It remains to be seen how seriously the administration will carry out Trump's threats. Trump's threats being whether they will start by attacking grassroots groups or proceed from top down, targeting massive liberal institutions and fundraising platforms. He's talking there. What Antifa is talking about there are things that they suspect the Trump administration is going to do. They're not saying we're liberal or institutions with a top-down leadership. Antifa is exactly the opposite of that. And if you look at the entire article, and again, I read the whole article on the channel. You don't have to take my word for it. It's on Crime Think's website. He took this completely out of context, misinterpreted what it is, and then lied to his audience about it. And this is why the right is so misinformed, guys. It just is. Antifa are not liberals. Antifa are not in top-down organizations. And if you read the entire rest of this article, which, like, how the fuck did he even come to this conclusion, given the article that he took this out of? Like, did someone just send this to him in the DMs and he didn't bother to do a fact check? Like, what the hell happened here? Because if you actually read the entire article, there is no way you come across with this interpretation of what Antifa is saying. It's completely out of context, misinterpreted, horrible analysis. So either he's lying and he knows it, or he needs to work on his reading comprehension. But either way, we read this article on the stream, guys. You guys know what this article says. Mike Benz saying that Antifa is a massive liberal institution with top-down leadership, that just reflects a fundamental, like, complete and total lack of understanding at all with what he's dealing with. So I'm sorry. I have to veto Mike Benz. I know a lot of you like him. I got a lot of angry comments when I posted about this on Twitter, but facts are facts and reality is reality. And Antifa are not liberals, and Antifa don't have a top-down hierarchy. And the entire rest of that flipping article contradicts the conclusion that he's making in this tweet right here, which has massively misinformed how many people? 170,000 people. So no. Veto on Mike Benz. Veto, 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 veto. So you got to question everything, guys. And I always say the same thing with me. Well, no, this is not a feelings competition, Elon. This is, I don't understand why you guys do this. Well, I like him and he is my friend. And I know that's not what you're doing, but like it kind of is actually. He's lying. He is lying or grossly misinterpreting what is in that article. He is misinforming you as a part of it. Why do you like being misinformed? Why do you like being lied to by these conservative con artists? He, like, in theory, he should be smart enough to know better. In theory, Mike Benz should be smart enough to read an entire article and analyze it in context. Why do you like being lied to? This is not a holistic approach. When you take in information from people who lie to you, how do you know the difference, Elon? How do you know the difference? Do you go and fact check every claim, or are you just taking in information from people who lie to you and having that information sit alongside the truth? It makes no sense at all. It makes no sense at all why people continue to listen to people when they are, well, you obviously don't because you like being lied to, and I'm not arguing with you about this anymore. You obviously don't because you like being lied to because this person is your friend or some nonsense, and it's all garbage. But hey, you know what? Listen, a lot of people like to be willfully ignorant. I can't control that. What I can say is this interpretation is not correct, and it's provably false if you just actually read the entire effing article, which we did on the channel on Friday. And you can find a clip of it on the Substack. You can find a clip of it on YouTube, or you can just go read the full article yourself. And I promise you, if you go and read the full article, Mike Benz's interpretation of that article is going to look like comedy hour. That's how bad it is. It is comedy. Okay? So if you want to maintain willful ignorance, he's a great source of information. If you want to be lied to, he's a great source of information. This is why I only show you guys primary source evidence. That's it. That's it. So we are getting into the content now, guys. Please mount the like button if you would be so kind. We are going to be starting today, and I'm going to have my handy dandy AI read this for me if it wants to work. We are going to be starting today with an article from CrimeThink called ICE Out of Illinois, ICE Out of Everywhere, Report from the Blockade at the Broadview Facility. The AI reader was reading earlier, so hopefully it does it again. Let's try.
ICE out of Illinois.
Yeah.
IC out of everywhere. A report from the blockades at the Broadview facility.
Awesome. Awesome. Let me put this link in the chat so you guys can follow along with the article. We are listening to an AI reader today, so you guys are just going to have to deal with it. Because I don't want to read the whole thing. But we will listen to the article and we will stop and we will break stuff down and stuff like that. And well, you're still arguing in the chat, Elin, and I told you I'm not arguing with you about this anymore. Don't want to for some reason, for the same reasons. I don't even know what you're talking about, but you're going to go in a little timeout for 5 minutes because I don't want this argument to continue. We are reading an article now. We are moving on. Okay. I think I may have gotten some super chats. Hang on. There we go, Andre. Some people don't understand they need to stop choosing to believe lies and liars. Say no to lies. Yeah. I mean, listen, man. And this is something I've seen on the conservative right for a long time. Conservatives love their influencers. They love their influencers on a personal level. They don't want to believe that their lying influencers are lying to them. It creates a lot of cognitive dissonance. And so every time I prove that one of these conservatives is listening to people who lie to them, just with the evidence, the response I get is, but I really like him. Well, you're allowed to really like him. I guess you're allowed to really like being lied to. But if you want to know why you don't understand the left, if you want to know why you're completely unhinged from reality, it's because you're listening to someone who lies to you. I'm sorry. I don't make the rules. I don't make the evidence. I just show it to you on the internet. That's it. Anyway, let's dig into this article. Let's see what they're doing in Illinois.
A report from the blockades at the Broadview facility. ICE out of Illinois. IC out of everywhere. A report from the blockades at the Broadview facility. Following messy efforts to crack down on immigrants in Los Angeles, the Trump administration announced that Chicago will be the next target of concentrated attacks from United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The so-called Blitz is already meeting resistance. In June 2025, thousands of people in Chicago took to the streets in solidarity with the resistance in Los Angeles. At the same time, demonstrators from Seattle to Chicago experimented with blocking ICE agents when they showed up to kidnap people at court appearances. Now, people in Chicago area are seeking.
Oh, shit. I want to note something about this. For people who are new, so how the left frames what ICE is doing to its people, and I've heard them do this in meetings, they're telling people that ICE is kidnapping people. You can see it here. And when they're telling people ICE is kidnapping people, they basically, so at the New York Anarchist Book Fair, I went undercover with an anti-ICE group where they were training us on how to identify ICE. They trained us how to slash ICE's tires and stuff like that. And so this is the language that they use. They said ICE is coming into our communities and kidnapping people, and we have to prevent people from being kidnapped. So you have to understand that from the leftist perspective, from the far left perspective, they're literally preventing people from being kidnapped and saving their life. Now, of course, that's absurd and stupid. I'm not suggesting I agree with them, but I'm explaining to you the mentality of the leftist. They believe that they are the do-gooders in this situation, and that's why they're willing to do this. That's why they're willing to put their bodies in front of ICE vehicles. That's why they're willing to commit crimes. They literally believe that they are preventing their neighbors from being kidnapped, okay? This is what I mean when I say Antifa is a cult. The left is a cult. They only ever listen to and talk to other leftists, so they are in a complete echo chamber where they're only getting this perspective reinforced, and that's why they believe that they are literally protecting people from being kidnapped.
Now, people in Chicago, demonstrators from Seattle to Chicago experimented with blocking ICE agents when they showed up to kidnap people at court appearances. Now, people in Chicago area are seeking to take strategic action at bottlenecks in ICE operations. In this report, participants in the blockades targeting an IC facility near Chicago recount their experiences and share their preliminary conclusions. In the early hours of September 19th, people congregated outside of the IC processing facility in Broadview, Illinois, a suburb west of Chicago, gathering far earlier than the publicly announced mobilizations set for 7 a.m. and later for the evening. We hope to catch federal agents in the act of transporting kidnappees from around the Midwest.
Again, we hope to catch federal agents in the process of kidnapping, of transporting kidnappees around the Midwest. This is Antifa writing this.
The processing center in Broadview holds roughly 150 prisoners at any given time. It serves as a hub for IC activity across the Midwest. Higher capacity ICE detention centers are illegal in Illinois, making the location a logistical choke point in the transportation of prisoners. As federal resources for this center have ballooned to satisfy far-right politicians' desire for xenophobic violence, the Broadview location has become increasingly important as a critical piece of infrastructure. When protest activity at Broadview began, small groups initially tended towards self-sacrificial, spectacular acts, typically sitting down in front of IC vans leaving the processing center, only to be dragged away by the Broadview Police Department.
Oh, I was muted. Hang on, got a question here from Arthur. Why do you think the kid shot detainees? Well, it is true that the far left is arming themselves. It is true that there are far left gun clubs, like the Socialist Rifle Association and the John Brown Gun Club. However, that's not to say that every moron in Antifa with a gun knows how to use the gun. That's not to say that every idiot with a gun actually goes to the range to train with the gun and learns how to shoot the gun before they go and shoot up the ICE facility. So you got to remember, listen, you can already tell by this document, Antifa's not dumb. They're highly strategic about what they're doing. And by the way, they've been talking like this since January. I've been documenting Antifa's plans around ICE facilities since January, long before most people were talking about it, because they've literally been talking about attacking ICE facilities since January, okay? Antifa's not dumb. They think about logistics. They think about choke points in ICE facilities. They think about where they're going to attack ICE vans. They're highly strategic. But that's not to say that everyone in Antifa is, smart or thinks things through. There is absolutely mental illness within Antifa. And although I would not make the argument that all Antifa is mentally ill, I actually think that's an incredibly dangerous argument to make. I think we can make the argument that if someone is bringing a gun from the Russian Revolution, because that gun was like literally the same gun they used in the Russian Revolution, if someone is bringing a gun to an ICE facility, an old gun that is from the Russian Revolution, I think we might be able to assess that that person might be mentally ill. Well, you don't get to disagree with me, bro. You're in my fucking classroom. I'm telling you the answer, and I promise you, you don't have more information than I do. So if you want to make an argument, go ahead and make the argument, and I will tell you why you're wrong. But as a reminder, guys, you are in my classroom right now. I'm not in yours. This is not a conversation. You're asking me a question. I'm giving you an answer. I expect you to actually listen to the answer I'm giving you, because I'm taking time out of the stream to answer your question out of the goodness of my heart. You didn't even send in a super chat. So before I even finish my answer, you're telling me how you disagree. So I'm not going to answer the rest of your question. If you have a counter argument that you would like to present, please go ahead and present it. But my guess is, Arthur, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and you didn't even listen to the answer that I gave you, which tells me not to waste any more time on you. Shelly, and with the super chat in Antifa literature, is there any shade of meaning between far right, fascist, and Nazi? Oh, no. No, Antifa thinks that anyone who is not a communist is a far right, fascist, Nazi, whatever. So if you are to the right of Antifa, you are considered a fascist and a Nazi and far right and all that. So that's a great question. No, I'm not, but I appreciate the money. But no, I'm not, but I appreciate the money. Thank you. See, I mean, listen, you got to give Arthur credit. He followed the pay Karlyn money if she yells at me rule. I like that. I like that. I did see another super chat come in, I think. Hang on. Or did I? Yes. John, I work with an anarcho commie and he literally believes ICE is committing genocide. Yes, they do. That's a great point. It is 1940s Germany. I'm in every commie's head right now. Yeah, that's actually true. And that's perpetual. That's a great observation, John. I appreciate it. All right, let's keep going.
When protest activity at Broadview began, small groups initially tended towards self-sacrificial, spectacular acts, typically sitting down in front of IC vans leaving the processing center, only to be dragged away by the Broadview Police Department. As reports and footage from each action spread,
Arthur, did I say anything about trans? Did I even say the word trans? I didn't say the word trans, bro. Listening comprehension's gotta do some work. Again, I appreciate the $10 super chat. I do. But I didn't say the word trans. I wasn't talking about trans people. There are a lot of people in Antifa who are not trans. If you think that everyone in Antifa is trans, you need to stop listening to whatever moron influencer told you that, because that's just not the truth. There are a lot of people in Antifa that are not trans at all in any way. No. The shooter wasn't trans. The Dallas ICE shooter wasn't trans. Anyway, we're moving on now, okay?
When protest activity at Broadview began, small groups initially tended towards self-sacrificial, spectacular acts, typically.
Hang on, we got another super chat coming in. Sorry, guys, we got to pause the article to do super chats. I mean, like, I appreciate the money. I do. Maybe if I keep getting so many super chats, I'll be like putting them in sections. I just put the link in the chat to the article again for people who just joined, so you can follow along. Andre said, "Doesn't Antifa believe even Democrats or capitalists are far right?" Oh yeah, Antifa absolutely believes that Democrats are on the far right. So, and this is why it's so stupid that Trump is tweeting that the Democrats are Antifa. Antifa believes the Democrats are far-right capitalist Nazis. Okay? It's absurd. Anyone that listens to Antifa knows damn well that Democrats are not Antifa and Antifa are not Democrats.
When protest activity at Broadview began, small groups initially tended towards self-sacrificial, spectacular acts, typically sitting down in front of IC vans leaving the processing center, only to be dragged away by the Broadview Police Department. As reports and footage from each action spread and faith in the effectiveness of nonviolent resistance waned, the mobilizations changed form. The primary objective of action shifted from sacrifice to resistance.
Yo, listen to this. As reports and footage from each action spread and faith in the effectiveness of nonviolent resistance waned, Antifa is telling us they don't have any faith that nonviolent resistance is going to be effective. You guys get that, right? They're saying faith in the effectiveness of nonviolent resistance waned. The mobilizations changed forms. The primary objective of action shifted from sacrifice means nonviolent resistance, to resistance. Resistance means aggressive direct action designed to provoke ICE. This is published on their website yesterday. This is a brand new document. Yep. Civility is capitalist. Exactly.
As reports and footage from each action spread and faith in the effectiveness of nonviolent resistance waned, the mobilizations changed form. The primary objective of action shifted from sacrifice to resistance. ICE began brutalizing and detaining protesters at will, and attempts to block the vans failed. In response, early morning crowds traded N95 masks for black block gear and opted to follow agents instead of just sitting down.
Okay, we'll look at that in a second. Alex, I'm very, very sorry. Only literal retards think that Democrats and media are useful idiots for Antifa. Only people who don't listen to the left think this. Only people who interact with conservative bullshit influencers think this. So thank you for the money, but your super chat is completely wrong. And I strongly advise you to stop listening to whatever retard influencers you're listening to and hinge back into reality with what the real far left thinks. But thanks for the money, bro. Appreciate it. ICE began brutalizing and detaining protesters at will. The minute that Antifa You just got put in a timeout for the rest of the stream. Thank you. You don't tell me. Guys, okay, we have a lot of people here today. As a reminder, we have 2 rules in my chat. Number 1, don't be a dick. Number 2, no whining. Don't be a dick means you don't insult me, you don't insult other people in the chat. I can do whatever I want, Arthur, because you are in my house. You are in my classroom. You are in my private property. I can say and do whatever the fuck I want. And when people like you start whining and complaining because you're not getting the answers that you like, and you lash out exactly like this, that's when you go into a timeout because you are whining. And I don't want to hear your whining. I don't give a fuck about your feelings. Either you're here to learn or you can go. You can go avail yourself of everyone else teaching this stuff on the internet. Go find someone else. Oh, Arthur just got permanently banned. Oh no. Oh no. Arthur was going to go into a 24-hour timeout and now Arthur is permanently banned. Bye, Arthur. Bye. See ya. Anyway, back to this. ICE begin brutalizing and detaining protesters at will. So what Antifa is doing here is Antifa is trying to present the image that it is ICE who is the aggressors. It is ICE who is doing the violence onto other people. And if ICE are the aggressors and ICE are inflicting violence onto other people, then that gives Antifa a complete open window to be violent in regards to ICE. Okay?
ICE began brutalizing and detaining protesters at will, and attempts to block the vans failed. In response, early morning crowds traded N95 masks for black block gear and opted to follow agents instead of just sitting down. Clearly, a more proactive approach was required. The efforts of Friday, September 19th, were the result. Friday morning. For over a decade, on Fridays at 7 a.m., Broadview has bused attendees to Indiana's Gary Chicago International Airport and more recently
Thanks,
to
David.
other detention centers in the Midwest. The facility responded to initial televised acts of civil disobedience by moving people out earlier and earlier. So we woke up earlier too. On September.
So I want you guys to pay attention to this. Again, this is why we never say Antifa is mentally ill. Antifa is literally staking out ICE facilities to find out what their schedule is and when they're moving people in and out of the ICE facilities so that they can literally plan their attacks on the ICE facilities when it's going to be more effective. See? I really do want you guys to learn. But you're not going to be a dick and you're not going to disrespect me when I do it. I work way too hard. I put myself through way too much nonsense. But there are people who appreciate my approach.
On September 19th, around 4:30 a.m., about 20 protesters gathered by the facility. Some were dressed in black bloc, some in normal street clothes. In contrast to the previous week's self-sacrificial civil disobedience, most people, with the exception of an aspiring congresswoman and her press crew, decided only to stand in front of a vehicle when it was entering or leaving. This shift enabled a small crowd to move like water. An IC agent on his way to work hurries away from protesters during the early hours of the morning. The first van that tried to leave.
I want to mention this because it's kind of relevant to this. I'm not ready to talk about this yet, but earlier today, I found a YouTube channel, or I should say, I didn't find it. A member of my community found it, and I was very grateful to that person for tipping me off to it. There is a YouTube channel that is streaming from Antifa's perspective all of their protests and demonstrations outside of these ICE facilities. And they just sit there and stream as Antifa yells at ICE officers. And you can see multiple streams like this morning, it was streaming from Chicago and from Los Angeles. And it was showing you what happened in Chicago and Los Angeles, just like, again, from the perspective of the people who are actually protesting outside of the ICE facilities. And one of the things that Antifa is doing in Chicago specifically is Antifa is trying, and I saw this on the stream, Antifa is trying to position their cameras so that they're seeing the license plates of the cars going in and out of the ICE facilities. So what they're trying to do is basically figure out who's in the cars and dox those people on the internet to other people in Antifa. I'm not ready to show you guys this yet because this YouTube channel has months of protest footage. They have months of this stuff. And so I literally just found it. I haven't had the chance to dig into it yet, but I will show it to you at some point because it's like there, and we'll probably end up watching it on the channel at some point. It is literally just like you can see exactly what Antifa's doing from their perspective on the ground. And Chicago is one of the facilities they're doing it out of. I just looked at the Crime Think website. I never knew how organized Antifa were. Breaking this up would be a hard task. It goes deep. Yeah. And the stuff on that Crime Think website goes back decades. It goes back decades. And you also have to remember, Crime Think is not the only website that does this. There are plenty of other Antifa websites. Crime Think is just the most reliable, and they tend to update the most often, and they're like the most prolific. Crime Think was literally at the anarchist book fair that I went undercover at in New York like a week and a half ago. So they're everywhere. They're distributing these documents all over the country. So it's just one of the best sources, but it's by no means the only source. And this is why I tell people it's so important to actually hinge into reality with the real far left, because once you actually look at what they're doing, it's like it becomes undeniable how organized and cohesive these people are. And again, guys, I will put the link to the article we're reading in the chat, and you can just go to the website from there if you want to check it out. We read articles from here on a pretty frequent basis. Got a Rumble rant from Lady over on Rumble. Do they teach their people to go out alone, or do they usually go out as a group? That's a great question. And actually, that was the one thing that was kind of confusing to me about this shooter at the ICE facility, because typically, almost always, Antifa will go out as a group. Because they're collectivists. They don't believe in individuality. They believe in doing things as a group. That the kid who shot up that ICE facility today probably had help. I have a hard time believing it was a lone gunman, because Antifa doesn't operate like that. Now, could it have been? I mean, sure, there's always the possibility of like a lone crazy person, right? But like, I have a really hard time believing that kid today that shot up the ICE facility in Dallas didn't have help of some sort. And maybe we'll find out more information about that. But that was a really great question. Keynes, let's see. Thank you for the super chat. Is this about the shooting in the Dallas ICE facility today? Appreciate your work and love your chat rules. Yeah, so we discussed the Dallas shooting earlier, but this document was actually published yesterday, so before the Dallas ICE shooting. And this is basically a report from Antifa on what they're doing in Chicago. So we're getting kind of like a boots on the ground perspective of like, here is what Antifa is seeing and doing in Chicago right now as of yesterday. Appreciate the super chat.
The first van that tried to leave Broadview was turned back as most of the crowd surrounded it, and 3 people sat in the driveway. Energy was high, and those present followed any agent who left the gates closely, heckling the ones who pulled up to a nearby parking lot that holds marked IC vans, unmarked cars, and agents' personal vehicles. Caught off guard by the early risers, the agents were frantic, some sprinting from the parking lot to the gates of Broadview. In response to the heckling, they formed groups of 3 or more to walk to the facility. Some put on their gear before entering. This cowardice is worthy of note. A group of...
Hang on. There is no reality in which Antifa would pose as Democrats. You guys have got to understand, Antifa are a cult. This is their identity. They hate Democrats. There is no reality in which Antifa are going to pose as Democrats. That's what we call a conservative bullshit talking point. Yeah, they hated Kamala Harris because she was a cop. That's exactly right. They completely denounced Kamala Harris, even when she was vice president, because she's a cop and they don't like cops. Like one of the number one goals of Antifa is to abolish the prison industrial complex. And so, no, there's no reality they would do that. Did I see Tennessee State? No. What happened at Tennessee State University? What other nightmare is this? I don't know what you're talking about.
A group of mercenaries enters a detention center.
Mercenaries.
The enthusiasm of the early morning attendees set the tone for the rest of the day. As the sun began to rise, the agents inside the facility picked up where they had left off the previous week. Decked out in tactical gear.
Real? Harrison followed me on Twitter like yesterday. Harrison Smith aired a clip of mine on InfoWars. Yo, I made it on InfoWars. That's so cool. I made it on InfoWars in the final days of InfoWars I made it before InfoWars totally goes down. Yeah, awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I know. I knew Harrison interviewed Nick. Isn't that funny? That's cool, man. If someone can find me like a time code for that clip, we'll totally watch it. Yeah, bro, just because you fled communism in 1991 does not mean that you know what communist activists are doing in the Okay, Alex, you fled communism in 1991, you know everything about everything. What is the left's definition of capitalism? Go. You know everything about what communists in America are doing now. You're going to teach us how much you know, Alex. This question is only for Alex, it's for no one else. This is a little game we do when someone comes in my chat and they act like they know more than me. Just because you my husband fled from communism as well, bro. Just because you fled from communism doesn't mean you know shit about shit. What is the left's definition of capitalism? We'll wait for your answer in the chat now. Go. Okay, guys, Antifa and Democrat hate each other. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, Alex, it's okay to say that you don't know the answer to the question, but we are going to wait for your answer to the question. What is the left's definition of capitalism? If you don't answer, Alex, you're going to get a timeout for the rest of the day in the chat. And the only reason you're getting a timeout for the rest of the day is you sent me money, to be really blunt. If you were just chatting in and I was yelling at you, you totally get banned. But Alex, we are waiting. I'm not going to hold up the stream all day, Alex. You've got 30 more seconds to answer the question. What is the left's definition of capitalism? Go. You got 30 seconds. It's a really simple question. If you know anything about communism, you know the answer to this question. 15 seconds. We're waiting, Alex. What is the left's definition of capitalism? Yeah, he's calling a friend or he's doing AI. Yup, Google's not going to tell you this answer. 5, 4, 3. Well, you got one of those right. It's private property, but family is considered to be a form of private property. So the fact that you don't know that family is considered to be a form of private property tells me you don't actually know the answer in the first place. So nice try, but nope, you do not know what you're talking about the left. And so now we're going to ignore every single thing that you say. But thanks for the money, bro. Appreciate it. Back to this.
Decked out in tactical gear, some gathered on the roof, some behind the front gate. Blocked by the crowd, ICE agents started driving.
Alex, you didn't answer it, bro. You didn't answer it. Private property and family is not the correct answer because the family is considered to be a form of private property, which everyone who watches my content knows. The family is the reproduction mechanism of capitalism via social reproduction theory because the family itself is to consider. Nope, wrong. Alex just keeps talking and now Alex is going in a timeout. Sorry, Alex, don't want to hear it anymore. Bye. We've got work to do. Go away.
Blocked by the crowd, ICE agents started driving vehicles on the curb around the protesters. There were simply not enough people or enough technical preparation to block or stop the cars at that time. The first arrest of the morning occurred around 6 a.m. when a van trying to leave the facility was once again blocked by standing and sitting protesters. This time, 6 Special Forces officers carrying pepper ball guns and a tear gas launcher rushed out of the gate. They grabbed the people on the ground and dragged them back. One woman was thrown violently against the ground, and another person was dragged across the asphalt by 2 agents before being grabbed and pulled through the gate into the facility. As the agents backed up into the gate, one fired several pepper balls at people in the driveway. The pattern of Special Response Team, SRT, agents storming out to escort an exiting or entering vehicle repeated throughout the morning.
So how Antifa is framing this is they're saying, we were the brave protesters standing out in front of the ICE facility. And when ICE tried to leave with kidnapped victims in their vans, we surrounded the vans and we didn't let them leave. And then the evil ICE agents came out and they hit us with pepper spray balls and they threw us to the ground and they arrested us. So Antifa's trying to do their level best to say, they're like saying, we're just standing around. I don't even know why you guys are upset. We're just blocking your vehicle. We aren't doing anything violent, but then they're saying, but the ICE agents attack them and bully them and shoot things at them and stuff like that. So they're doing everything they can to frame it in terms of like, ICE is the one inflicting violence on them when they're just standing there totally innocent, bro.
Friday afternoon, between 7 a.m. and midday, the vibes on both sides of the fence shifted. As more guards began to enter the facility with gear and buckets of munitions, distinct tendencies within the crowd became more evident. Some sections of the crowd sang, while others became more riled up after seeing protesters get repeatedly pepperballed and dragged inside.
See?
Still others helped families attempting to reach loved ones held inside the facility. The SRT agents tear gassed the crowd for the first time around midday during a standoff over exiting vans. The agents shot tear gas canisters and pepper balls into the crowd before dragging one man back into the facility with them. Few were prepared for the chemical munitions, and the crowd scattered across the street, while some helped.
The chemical munitions. This is something they did at the campus encampment too. When they were putting up like tent cities on college campuses, they kept telling people that the colleges were using chemical munitions on them. They were trying to say like they're literally poisoning us and stuff like that.
Few were prepared for the chemical munitions, and the crowd scattered across the street, while some helped wash eyes and move their worst-hit comrades to safety. In the afternoon,
Comrade!
the crowd outside dwindled as people regrouped and waited for the second publicly announced demonstration. Federal agents grabbed a protester at Broadview during the afternoon.
See?
Friday evening, a second protest had been called for 7 p.m. Images of people being detained and tear gassed had spread across the media and galvanized many who had not yet been out to Broadview. On Friday evening, people rejoined a smaller crowd that remained from the day's protests. Throughout the evening, 2 or 3 agents remained on the roof of the facility, intermittently shooting pepper balls at protesters on the ground. As protesters amassed around 7 p.m., about 30 SRT agents gathered behind the gates. Protesters called for them to free the hundreds of people held captive inside, as well as the protesters arrested earlier that day.
Okay, I want to make sure everyone's reading comprehension is up to snuff. Protesters called for them to free the hundreds of people held captive inside the ICE facility. What are they referring to? Because remember, like Antifa is saying, they're kidnapping all these people. We have to rescue these people from being kidnapped. So when they're saying to their people, all we were doing was asking for the hundreds of people being held captive by these evil, violent mob. We're just asking for them to be freed. What are they saying? Yeah, this is like, I love this. This is like fanfic level. This is like fanfic coding. Yeah, held captive. They're talking about illegal immigrants that have been picked up by ICE and scheduled for deportation. That's what they're saying when they say free the hundreds of people held captive by the evil, militaristic organization that's enforcing capitalism upon all of us.
Protesters called for them to free the hundreds of people held captive inside, as well as the protesters arrested earlier that day. Following a daytime standoff with demonstrators by the gate of the facility, Gregory Bovino, who led the icy invasion of Los Angeles, moves in with agents and attempts to force the crowd back. After 7 p.m., shields arrived. A dozen or so militants picked them up, but the majority of the crowd stayed at a distance, perhaps reflective of the previous week's tendency toward symbolic acts by a small number of people. There was a significant gap between the small group of people at the front and those observing at a distance, and no organic understanding of the need for people to participate behind the front line. The people in the shield line began calling out and gesturing to the crowd, telling press to get out of the way and everyone else to pack in. Agents stormed out of the gates around 7:30 p.m. The frontliners in the shield line repelled the first wave of munitions, facing down a barrage of tear gas, pepper balls, and flashbang grenades. But they were forced to retreat due to the combination of the agents' less lethal munitions and the disintegration of the crowd behind them. This was understandable. Not everyone has protective gear, and even those of us with gas masks felt the effects of the gas. Most of the crowd was not bracing each other or the shield line. A shield wall blocks riot munitions on the night of Friday, September 19th.
Hang on.
The front line.
I want to show you this picture. So Antifa has homemade shields. They have zines and pamphlets that will teach people how to make their own homemade shields. And so you can see they're blocking the things that ICE is firing at them with their homemade shields.
The front line cannot be a specialized group that acts alone while others stand by documenting or witnessing. The specialization of relevant skills, from eyewashing to jail support, leaves militants isolated when pressure ramps up. A well-organized front line integrates offensive roles with the support necessary to sustain resistance and carry out objectives. But while the gulf between perceived militants at the front and folks at the back continues to impede effective defense, the growing tendency to resist points beyond it. We want to shut down Broadview, not just symbolically, but completely. The strategy is
Okay, so I want to make sure we emphasize this line because I've been accused lately by that communist that I got fired at Texas State University. I've been accused of taking things out of context and saying that when I say that communists want to overthrow the federal government, that they're just speaking theoretically. So communists, when they say they want to overthrow the federal government, when I catch them on video saying it, they say, I wasn't being literal. I was just speaking about socialist history and I was just speaking theoretically. Guys, do you think this is theoretical? We want to shut down Broadview, that is the immigration facility, not just symbolically, but completely. Are they being clear? This is not symbolic. This is not figurative. The attacks that Antifa is making on these ICE facilities are to shut them down because they are trying to overthrow this part of the government. They're doing this because they believe that ICE is the militant arm of the government that is enforcing capitalism by enforcing borders, because borders are a management effort of capitalism, because capitalism is private property ownership. How do you have private property? You have borders. The reason that Antifa are open borders is they don't believe borders should exist because they believe that borders enforce private property. They're being extremely clear about their intentions. This is not symbolic. This is not figurative.
We want to shut down Broadview, not just symbolically, but completely. The strategy of spectacle is based on the notion that the repeated brutalization of our comrades will persuade those who are abducting our neighbors to stop. But as people witness these kidnappings firsthand and experience the brutality of law enforcement, many are gradually abandoning that approach. Some for whom the violence of the state was previously an abstract concept are turning against the mercenaries that they see standing on the roof of Broadview, looking back at them through the scope of a weapon and choosing to pull the trigger. Crowd control.
Hang on, I want to read this again. I know we're stopping a lot, but there's just a lot to break down. We want to shut down Broadview, not just symbolically, but completely. The strategy of spectacle is based on the notion that the repeated brutalization of our comrades will persuade those who are abducting our neighbors to stop. But the people witness these kidnappings firsthand and experience the brutality of quote unquote law enforcement may gradually abandon that approach. So what they're saying is when people actually go to the ICE facilities and they see the brutality of the ICE officers and the kidnappings and all that stuff, they abandon a nonviolent approach in favor of a more aggressive one. Some for whom the violence of the state, that means the capitalist state, was previously an abstract concept, are turning against the mercenaries means ICE, that they see standing on the roof of Broadview, looking back at them through the scope of a weapon and choosing to pull the trigger. See there? Riot control.
Crowd control. The ICE agents themselves proved brutal but unintelligent. Several times they appeared lost, barreling into the crowd of demonstrators before pulling back just as quickly. Despite favorable conditions, they did not know how to kettle. When agents approached demonstrators, they often broke.
Kettle means, for people who don't know this word, despite favorable conditions, they don't know how to kettle. Kettle is essentially when law enforcement surround all the protesters, like they surround them in a way that they can't get out, and then they kind of close in on them, and then they start arresting people. So what Antifa is saying is ICE officers at this facility are so stupid, they don't know how to do this basic kettling law enforcement procedure.
When agents approached demonstrators, they often broke ranks or formed a wall only one agent deep. Employing pepper ball guns, they shot sporadically and haphazardly, often without any specific target. Agents frequently broke in the face of demonstrators, appearing shaken even by feeble chants. Likewise, The SRT typically avoided close proximity with demonstrators, despite having a more significant advantage. Whether this was due to laziness, confusion, or both, they hesitated to detain even those who actively tried to stop vehicles from leaving the facility. This is only speculation, but it is worth remembering that the facility is relatively small, is used continuously, and holds roughly 150 prisoners at a time. In light of Operation Midway Blitz and other IC activity in and around Chicago, it is likely that the facility is already operating at its maximum capacity. This, along with their apparent lack of crowd control experience, may have informed how agents and SRDs engage with demonstrators. A flashbang grenade explodes as federal agents attack the shield wall, becoming proactive. If the courage we are seeing is to escape specialized and repetitious clashes with better equipped state forces, it will need to forego media spectacle to take more proactive efforts against deportation infrastructure. We need to define what it would mean to achieve victory over the state's agents and facilities, and articulate the fight for liberation that underlies the shift towards more generalized confrontation with the representatives of the state and capital.
Oh, what a sentence. What a sentence. We need to go back for this one. We need to define what it would mean to achieve victory over the state's agents, that means the police, the military, ICE, and facilities, jails, prisons, and articulate the fight for liberation. Liberation means to free oneself from capitalism, that underlies the shift towards more generalized confrontations with representatives of the state and capital. So just in case people think that I'm not correct when I say these are words for capitalism, they're telling you this is about capital, the state and capital. So Antifa believes that the United States is a capitalist country, that the United States Constitution is a capitalist document, and that's why you so often see them use the term state and capital kind of interchangeably, because they believe they can't overthrow capitalism without overthrowing the state, without throwing off the ICE agents and the police and all that stuff and the military, and abolishing the Constitution. Okay? That's what they believe. I saw a question. Have Antifa numbers grown, and by how much over the years? See, this is really difficult to say. And this is a project we're working on. We're working on trying to create a map of the modern left, but like it's so difficult. And the reason it's so difficult, and the reason that I don't think the Trump administration has a handle on this, is Antifa is completely decentralized. So it's not like there's no central reporting structure. There's none of that. But what I can say is the far left has been actively picking away at all of the disaffected Democrats and liberals ever since Trump won re-election. And so I think Antifa's numbers have only ballooned in the past year. That just makes sense to me. But can I tell you specifically how much? I have no idea. And guess what? No one else has any idea either. And that's part of the scary thing. When you have a highly decentralized movement, it's almost impossible to be able to track and have any estimate for how many people are in it. Fun times are ahead, guys. Fun times are ahead.
We need to define what it would mean to achieve victory over the state's agents and facilities, and articulate the fight for liberation that underlies the shift towards more generalized confrontation with the representatives of the state and capital. Acting on that scale requires expanding beyond a specialized activist crowd, not to mention less laudable, more plainly careerist aspiring politicians, to build relationships with those who live around the facility and, more broadly, with everyone whose instinct is already to protect people from ICE. All over the country, people have spontaneously taken clever and timely actions against raids in their neighborhoods, acting before specialized activists and NGOs arrive to urge them to limit themselves to documenting and witnessing, rather than...
Okay, I want to make sure I emphasize this. All over the country, people have spontaneously taken clever and timely actions against raids in their neighborhood. They're talking about all these neighborhood groups that are popping up and having these signal chats where they're basically telling each other when ICE is around and trying to protect their neighbors from being deported. Acting before specialized activists and NGOs arrive to urge them to limit themselves to documenting and witnessing. Antifa is telling you they don't like NGOs. Okay? Antifa is telling you that NGOs, when NGOs get involved in these situations, they make the people involved less militant. Antifa wants people in these community groups attacking ICE. They want people in these community groups causing problems. Antifa is not okay. Who wants to answer this question? Because I've only answered it about 15,000 times in the last week. And I promise you, they're not funded by NGOs, because Antifa in this article is saying when NGOs arrive, everyone becomes de-radicalized. And I have other articles by Antifa where they are telling you they do not like NGOs. Antifa is funded by mutual aid. They're funded by mutual aid, mutual aid, mutual aid, mutual aid, mutual aid. They are not funded by Soros. They are not funded by USAID. They are not funded by NGOs. Antifa is funded by mutual aid. NGOs scuff their plans. NGOs de-radicalize. NGOs prevent them from doing the things that they want to do. People, and this is another thing the Trump administration doesn't understand, guys. There is no funding that can be cut off. There's no big funding in these groups. And a lot of what Antifa does, it's not expensive. They're very scrappy. They might print stuff off on paper, but like what they're doing isn't expensive. Mutual aid means small donations. Small donations of cash, small donations of supplies. There is no, conservatives. I have what? I have 630 people listening on YouTube right now. God knows how many other people are listening to me on other platforms. Conservatives, I need you to listen to me like you have never listened before in your fucking lives. Antifa does not have any big money backers. This is provably false. There is no big money that you can cut off. There is nothing. I have former Antifa that are on my channel. I don't know if any of the former Antifa are here today. If you are, speak up. But I have former Antifa people in my community. They will be the very first to tell you they don't have any funding. This is all mutual aid. It's voluntary donations. Most of what Antifa does is not expensive. Most of what Antifa does just takes time. It takes time and energy and focus, but it doesn't take money. And so that is why, if you think Antifa is busing people places, you are listening to conservative influencers who lie to you. Who is busing people places is the Party for Socialism and Liberation. The Party for Socialism and Liberation is not Antifa. These are completely separate groups. Stop fucking listening to Laura fucking Loomer. Laura Loomer is great with some research. Laura Loomer has completely lied to her audience on this point. Every single time someone thinks that Antifa's busing someone, I promise you it's because they heard it from Laura fucking Loomer. They are not Antifa. The Party for Socialism and Liberation is a completely different thing. They are funded in a completely different way. But Antifa doesn't even like hang on. Pause. Hang on. I'm going to prove to you guys right now that Antifa does not like the Party for Socialism and Liberation, okay? I'm on Crime Think's website. I need to scroll down a little bit. I'm looking for something very specific. I am on Crime Think's website. We are going to go back to not this, this. This article right here, hang on. Average person, this is why conservative influencers are our biggest obstacle in fighting the far left. Exactly. So I want everyone to go to this article. We're going to go back to the other one in a second. But I want to show you something in this article. And I'm just going to look it up. Find Party for... Here it is. On the evening of Monday, June 9th, over 600 protesters gathered at a Texas capitol for a march announced by the Party for Socialism and Liberation. A revolutionary organization called for a parallel demonstration, but at a time set blah, 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 blah. In this article, hang on, the PSL rally, the PSL is the Party for Socialism and Liberation, began marching tailed by a police motorcycle escort and reached the ICE facility by 7:45 p.m. The group were energetic and huge. A huge crowd chanted outside the facility, blah, blah, blah. Drummers beat a rhythm to the sound, breaking windows. Some people dragged scooters into the streets. Others painted pro-immigration and anti-ICE slogans and threw balloons with paint. All the while, the red-shirted PSL were urging the crowd to keep moving. They're telling you Antifa showed up in Austin and we were doing all this violent shit and we were breaking stuff and we were vandalizing things. And the Party for Socialism and Liberation were trying to get us to stop. They're telling you these are two completely different groups. Antifa wanted to vandalize shit and break shit. And the Party for Socialism and Liberation was like, no, guys, no, we can't do that because they're two different groups. Okay? Dozens of people pushed back, chanting, ICE is right there. Nonetheless, by 8 p.m., the PSL organizers had mobilized most of the crowd back towards the Capitol, successfully convincing the participants to tell others that moving would keep the group safe. A splinter group of about 100 stayed behind and continued to express their feelings with art and music. The march was effectively split between those who were acting on their own initiative and those who were submitting to the authority of the PSL. They do not like the PSL. That's not all. PSL shepherded the larger group back towards the Capitol to an intersection with nothing but high fences, mounted cops, and streets blockaded by police. PSL organizers got on the microphone to formally disband the march. They thanked everyone for coming and encouraged them to go home and rest up to do it again later. The crowd grew uncertain, largely returning to the sidewalk in front of the fenced-off Capitol and very nearly conceding to the street to the police with a few insistent spirits who remained at the intersection. And there's one more thing I want to find in this. Paid. Maybe it's not in this. I've definitely seen an article, and I'll have to go back and find it. I don't remember which one it was. In addition to this, I've also seen an article where Antifa overtly called the Party for Socialism and Liberation the paid protesters. Okay? It was around the same time as this article. I don't remember exactly the ones. Maybe it was here. Let me just do a search in here. Hang on. Paid. Here it is. Look at this. Here it is. Look at this. So this is an article about the Los Angeles riots. This is called Los Angeles Stands Up to ICE. People started amassing at the Metropolitan Detention Center. A press conference took place involving Union del Barrio, the SEIU, the Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights of Los Angeles. Peace policing caused fights between the paid activists and the crowd. They're calling, the PSL is also mentioned in this article. They're calling the PSL, Antifa is calling the PSL the paid activists or the paid protesters, because the PSL, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, is legitimately funded by the CCP. Antifa completely rejects the CCP. They completely reject that money. And so going back to the chat we saw earlier, asking about the busing. If Antifa doesn't have money, how are they busing people in? The answer is they're not. The Party for Socialism and Liberation is busing people in because the Party for Socialism and Liberation has CCP money. Antifa doesn't like that, and Antifa calls them the paid protesters or the paid activists. It is a contradiction of Antifa's ideology to take in money in that way. And these people are very serious. Antifa does not sell out for money, guys. They just don't. They are, what is the word? They're cult members. They're cult members. And so I want people to understand the PSL is not Antifa. Antifa is not the PSL. And every single time Laura fucking Loomer confuses this, more people don't know what's going on. Okay? And by the way, Trump is not going to be able to say that the PSL is a terrorist organization. You want to know why? Because the PSL is going to fight that in court and they're going to win because the PSL doesn't involve themselves in any of this. The PSL tries to keep things basically the PSL cares about optics. The PSL doesn't want to be violent. The PSL just wants to go out and have these big protests and have their signs and all that, so they keep getting their funding. But like, they're not committing acts of violence. They're not committing acts of vandalism. Antifa is not the PSL. The PSL is not Antifa. Is everyone clear on this? Everyone good? Okay. Let's go back. Sorry for that aside, but I do think that that is a really important distinction for people to make, because if we don't know what group we're talking about, we don't know what behaviors we can expect them to take, okay? Ideologue. Yes, thank you. Someone said it. Ideologue is the word that I'm looking for. Exactly. Exactly.
Rather than relying on all over the country, people have spontaneously taken clever and timely actions against raids in their neighborhoods, acting before specialized activists and NGOs arrived to urge them to limit themselves to documenting and witnessing. Rather than relying on reactive rapid response networks that rarely arrive in time, given the speed of raids, more proactive action can involve targeting choke points around local deportation pathways like Broadview, or as in Los Angeles, setting up community defense centers at hotspots of federal activity. Any effective anti-IC strategy would depend on the actions of locals who choose to intervene in their neighborhoods. Though the media has downplayed many of these stories, the clashes at Broadview are only possible because of the courage of those who have chased IC out of their neighborhoods in Los Angeles, Chicago, and elsewhere around the country.
Yeah, so Bear Boy in the chat says, I wouldn't be surprised if Trump ends up accusing the PSL of being Antifa. I promise you that's what's gonna happen. I'm putting my stake in the ground right now. I am predicting that Trump, because they know that the PSL is funded by the CCP and they don't like that. This is like, the PSL is the only organization where they actually understand the funding source. I promise you, Trump is going to say that the PSL are a terrorist organization because they're Antifa, and then the PSL is going to sue them, and the PSL is going to get the ACLU on their side, and the PSL is going to win in court because the PSL is not Antifa. So frustrating. So frustrating. And again, it's obvious. If you actually listen to the left and you actually watch leftist protests and you actually pay attention to all these leftist groups, I've been tracking the PSL since 2022. It's like the PSL is completely distinct from Antifa. They are not remotely the same thing. And if you actually look at the information, it's so clear. But the Trump administration isn't actually looking at the information. They're listening to social media bullshit. It's so frustrating.
Though the media has downplayed many of these stories, the clashes at Broadview are only possible because of the courage of those who have chased IC out of their neighborhoods in Los Angeles, Chicago, and elsewhere around the country. After the shield wall scatters, the remaining protesters move forward to meet agents at the gate. We also need rapid tactical development. Given the Chicago...
Hang on. We got a super chat from Meta Guide. Thank you. I was once a stupid conservative, and then Dr. Karlyn Borysenko cured me of my affliction by beating me back to my senses with knowledge. I love that so much. Yeah, I'll beat all of you in the head. I will beat all of you in the head with knowledge until you get it. Thank you.
Given the Chicago Police Department's reliance on kettling, collaborated with organizers, and when they so choose, batons, Chicagoans are less equipped to deal with tear gas than people in Los Angeles were. This is changing quickly, but it has taken some serious learning. We've seen increasing tactical openness. During the first phase of anti-IC struggles, hard and soft barricades were used to block the loading docks of a downtown immigration court, delaying deportations there by years at a time. During the struggles at Broadview, de-arresting has become a norm. Shields have become more widely accepted. The use of protective gear like respirators and goggles has become common, and protesters are beginning to return tear gas canisters to IC agents. These developments are not necessarily connected to any particular political commitments. We still see people who are willing to hold off agents and block vehicles, yet also quixotically call the police to report IC activity. NGOs and recruitment drive organizations emerging autonomous activity to stop deportations shows.
So I just want to note here, we're going to get a really direct answer about what Antifa thinks about NGOs right now.
NGOs and recruitment drive organizations. Emerging autonomous activity to stop deportations shows the potential of stepping outside of recruitment-based organizations, long marches to nowhere, and NGOs' emphasis on legal support after deportation arrests have already occurred.
So when they're saying NGOs, now this is actually kind of a legit form of attack that the Trump administration could do. There are organizations that provide legal support to Antifa after they're arrested. Okay? So Antifa, I said this on Fox News. Antifa trains to get arrested. They also train in de-arrest. I actually have a whole de-arrest zine that I'm going to put on the internet at some point where they're teaching this stuff. They train them on how to get arrested. They provide them with bail. They provide them with lawyers. The bail often comes from mutual aid, but the lawyers come from places like the National Lawyers Guild. That's not the only organization they get lawyers from, but that is one of the organizations. The National Lawyers Guild is an NGO. So that's what they're saying here. The activity is due in large part to, the NGO's emphasis on legal support after deportation and arrests have already occurred. So that is a very strategic line of attack the Trump administration can make in terms of like shutting down. And I don't know where the funding is coming from that, to be really honest. The NGOs are a different group than what Antifa usually does, but Antifa does use them when it comes to like getting access to like free lawyers and stuff like that. And so the Trump administration could absolutely go after organizations like the National Lawyers Guild, find out where their funding is coming from, cutting that off. But I really want to make sure people understand this. Just because you cut off the funding for the National Lawyers Guild or groups like that does not mean that Antifa is going to stop. It does not mean that you have actually cut off Antifa's funding source. What you have done is you've kind of like thrown sand in their gears and you've taken their lawyers away from them. But you have to understand, Antifa is not afraid of being arrested. Antifa is not afraid of sacrificing themselves for their cause. They are still going to go do this. They are still going to attack ICE facilities. They're still going to get arrested. They're still going to vandalize things. They're still going to slash ICE tires. They're still going to do all the things they're doing now. They're just going to have to figure out another way to get legal support. Now, does that mean you shouldn't do it? No, of course. Trump should absolutely cut off any funding sources to these lawyers as he possibly can, 100%. But I really want to make sure people understand that just because you take this away does not mean Antifa is going to stop.
Emerging autonomous activity to stop deportations shows the potential of stepping outside of recruitment-based organizations, long marches to nowhere, and NGOs' emphasis on legal support after deportation arrests have already occurred. This activity has grown in large part due to the NGOs abandoning key locations and struggles. The Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights and Organized Communities Against Deportations, the two main nonprofits that dominate organizing against deportations in Chicago, did not take action against the repeated deportations at immigration court earlier in summer 2025, while autonomous groups stepped in to barricade the loading docks, coordinate phone zaps, heckle management, flyer other occupants of the building, and conduct court support for people with hearings inside.
Okay, so now Antifa is talking about other organizations. They're saying, listen, the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights and Organized Communities Against Deportations, these are two nonprofits that Antifa is saying, where the hell were you guys? Antifa is basically saying, we've got these NGOs that aren't actually really involved in the same struggle that we're involved in, and they weren't actually even showing up. They're saying these NGOs did not take action against repeated deportations at immigration court earlier this summer. They're basically saying, like, these are not organizations we can rely on.
Those actions shut down the court on multiple occasions, pushing hearings back years, and ultimately forced the building management to revoke ICE's access to their loading docks, putting a stop to kidnappings at that location. This would not have occurred had autonomous demonstrators not blocked the flow of commerce into and out of the building.
Autonomous demonstrators means Antifa.
This would not have occurred had autonomous demonstrators not blocked the flow of commerce into and out of the building. Beyond calls and petitions, the NGOs similarly abdicated actions around Broadview.
See?
That was one of the factors that enabled the actions of the preceding weeks to take place. An umbrella serves as a makeshift defense during the clashes. Internal tensions. When people first mobilized against the Broadview facility a few weeks ago, it had hardly received any public attention. So some people focused on press strategy. This has caused tensions, from social media influencers issuing dispersal advice to swarms of press preventing de-arrests and isolating those who attempt to protect activists targeted for arrest. Those who have involved press and public opinion in their activity, the most have ended up letting that attention hinder their approach to strategy. While it is clear that we have to consider press and public attention in our movements, we should never compromise this moment's most promising goal, driving IC out of everywhere.
Okay, I want to read this again just so people are clear. These are ideologues. While it is clear that we have to consider press and public attention in our movements, we should never compromise on this moment's most promising goal, driving ICE out of everywhere. Again, this is their stated goal, not just in Chicago, in every location, in Los Angeles, in Portland, in Seattle, in New York, every location where they are protesting ICE facilities, they don't, yes, exactly. They're like, we maybe should consider the optics of this, but we are not compromising our values. We want to get rid of ICE everywhere. They're very, very clear. Only literal retards agree with you, Nicholas, so please listen to what you're being shown right now because you don't know what you're talking about and we will teach you, but if you mouth off in my chat again, I'm going to put you in a timeout to prevent you from being disruptive, okay?
While it is clear that we have to consider press and public attention in our movements, we should never compromise this moment's most promising goal, driving IC out of everywhere. While demonstrators have proved that they can build critical mass, they have sometimes limited their own effectiveness. In the weeks leading up to September 19th, messaging around the efforts to shut down Broadview was taken up by a range of people and organizations who, presuming they knew best, used notions like safety and visibility to discipline demonstrators to their own benefit. The assumption that the only imaginable goal of these protests is to speak truth to power rather than shutting down Broadview left people unprepared for the confrontations that ensued. On the night of September 19th, when shut it down meant taking serious risks, this meant that there was no second line to back up the shield wall. Without backing, the front line could not hold, and this gave the SRT units a chance to hunt down scattered demonstrators. Nonetheless, thanks to consistent protests and media coverage, people in the neighboring areas have begun to turn out. Without funding or support from any big-name organization or coalition, the fight to shut down Broadview depends on the courage of ordinary people.
Okay, we're going to read this again so people can be very clear about this. As a reminder, this is Antifa's publishing arm. This is Antifa publishing information so it gets distributed to all of the thousands of decentralized cells all over the country. So this is treat this like an internal document. Antifa is not used to people like us reading these documents. Leftists are deeply perturbed that I read their documents and I go to their events because they are so not used to people that are not other leftists reading their documents and going to their events that they don't know how to handle it. And so you have to treat this as they are talking to each other. And I've been behind closed doors in like their private meetings. This is exactly how they talk to each other. They're not talking to people like us. They're articulating information, okay? Nevertheless, thanks to the consistent protests and media coverage, people in the neighboring areas have begun to turn out. Without funding or support from any big-name organization or coalition, the fight to shut down Broadview depends on the courage of ordinary people. This is not code, guys. This is not secret trickery. This is Antifa telling you we do not have any funding. We do not have any support. We don't have big name organizations or coalitions that are doing this. We are doing this because normal people are showing up, and we are using them to try to shut down this ICE facility. But we are not doing this because we're paid. We're not doing this because we have some big funding source that can be cut off by the government. We're doing this in spite of not having that funding and not having that support at all. Does everyone understand? Bro, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I have been in their meetings. You have been sitting your ass on your couch watching sports. I have been infiltrating these people for 4 fucking years. How many of their private events have you gone to? I'm going to bet it's none. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Please shut up. Does everyone see? The funding that you think is coming from Soros is not there. The funding that you think is coming from USAID or Barack Obama or Act Blue or anything related to the Democrat Party is not there. Okay, you just got put in a timeout. You can sit in the back of the class and shut the fuck up. I live in Portland. I know everything. How much do you want to bet that dude has never been down to the ICE facility in Portland? Bro, I know people who are covering the ICE facility in Portland. I'll bet you all the money in my bank account that dude who claims he's in Portland has never gone any fuck off near the ICE facility. Yeah, average person lives in Seattle, and average person has actually gone undercover with these groups. I live in Portland, Pinkley Square. Trust me, bro. Anyway, let's listen again.
Without funding or support from any big name organization or coalition, the fight to shut down Broadview depends on the courage of ordinary people. A protester's umbrella shows the effects of pepperball rounds. The shutdown fiasco. As this piece was being composed, a series of leaks from the Department of Homeland Security suggested that the Broadview Processing Center was being temporarily shut down. Something similar had taken place earlier at the Delaney Hall Detention Center in New Jersey after protesters blocked and eventually breached it, though that site had come back into operation with better security a few months later. However, following a public meltdown featuring a DHS assistant secretary and eager claims of victory by organizations that had not been particularly visible on the ground, it was officially confirmed that the Broadview Processing Center would remain open as of the morning of September 23rd. The processing center has been blocked off by tall metal fences, presumably to impede protesters' access to its entry and exit gate, and clashes continue outside. The buses we have seen exiting the facility to drive to the Gary Chicago International Airport were transporting detainees who have been forced to sign self-removal papers. On the one hand, we've been aware for some time that
I love this. The buses we have seen exiting the facility to drive to the Gary Chicago International Airport were transporting detainees who had been forced to sign self-removal papers. The detainees were kidnapped by the evil aggressors and forced to sign papers on their removal. Okay.
On the one hand, we've been aware for some time that the processing center was at capacity. It is a relatively small building with limited bed space. This makes it a point of vulnerability for the entire deportation apparatus in Illinois and its adjoining states. On the other hand, the confusing sequence of events that ended with the center remaining open suggests internal disarray. This matches the reports we've heard from inside the facility itself that many of the mercenaries involved are working together for the first time, often at cross purposes.
Look, they're calling ICE agents mercenaries. They are. I've definitely heard the far left making a big deal about like all the new people that ICE is hiring. And you've seen this throughout this document. I think this might be an underrated thing that maybe we should just spend a moment on. Antifa is highly aware that many people going to work for ICE lack experience. They've talked about it throughout this document. They said ICE people are so stupid. They don't even know what they're doing. They don't even know how to kettle us. They're stepping out of line. They're talking to us separately. They're flat out telling you that they are hyper aware that there are a lot of inexperienced ICE agents and that they are trying to figure out how do we take advantage of their inexperience to cause more problems. And they're calling them mercenaries, which is just kind of funny.
This matches the reports we've heard from inside the facility itself that many of the mercenaries involved are working together for first time, often at cross purposes. It's possible that at one level, the IC and DHS bureaucracy, the decision was made to avoid a Delaney Hall type situation and improve security, but higher up leadership balked at the suggestion and insisted that the facility remain in use. In any case, it is clear that on some level, what we are doing is working. It is creating stressful and chaotic situations for our enemies, leading to internal conflict. The thresh.
What we are doing is working, and that's in bold, so you know they're really excited about that. What we're doing is creating stressful and chaotic situations for our enemies.
In any case, it is clear that on some level, what we are doing is working. It is creating stressful and chaotic situations for our enemies, leading to internal conflict. The threshold of effort necessary for success may be lower than we thought, and our enemies more fearful than we anticipated. At the same time, the sluggish and inept federal bureaucracy routinely experiences internal conflicts of this sort, and we should seek to take advantage of them.
Look how strategic they're being. I cannot emphasize this enough, guys. This is why I always reprimand people who say, these people are mentally ill, these people are stupid, these people are lazy. They're not mentally ill. People don't write like this. They don't think like this. Lazy people don't think like this. Stupid people don't think like this. Listen again. In any case, it is clear on some level that what we're doing is working. It is creating stressful and chaotic situations for our enemies, leading to internal conflict. The threshold of effort necessary for success may be lower than we thought, and our enemies more fearful than we anticipated. So they're actually saying, guys, we're being like way more effective at stopping these deportations than we ever thought we would be. They're like actually surprised at how much success they're having against the Trump administration in stopping these deportations. They're like, listen, this might even be even easier than we ever thought it could be. At the same time, the sluggish and inept federal bureaucracy routinely experiences internal conflicts of this sort, and we should seek to take advantage of them. ICE out of everywhere. And that's the end of that article. That's the end of that article. And again, the name of this article is ICE Out of Everywhere, ICE Out of Everywhere, a report from the blockades of the Broadview facility. This was published on Antifa's publishing website, which is CrimeThink, on September 23rd, 2025, yesterday as of the time of this recording of this video. And this is a direct report of what Antifa is seeing on the ground, that they are communicating to Antifa cells all over the country. I just want to address this. My point is she should be advising the Trump administration. The Trump administration is welcome to ask me. I'm not going to shill myself out for the Trump administration. The Trump administration is very well aware of my existence. I know that. I know people in the Trump administration. They know who I am. They are welcome to come and ask me. Like, I can't do anything if the Trump administration doesn't want to ask me. Like, and I promise you, I've been sending the Trump administration stuff like this for months and months and months, and they've been ignoring it for months and months and months. So, oh, bro, I'm very sorry. You just got permanently banned from my chat. I'm very sorry. Go away. Goodbye. So, listen. They know how to get in touch. I've been trying to give them this information for months. They didn't want to listen. They now have no clue what they're talking about. I'm happy to help them. I will help the Trump administration to understand everything they don't understand about the far left, but they have to come to me and ask me. Okay? Now listen, that article took a lot longer than I thought it would, mostly because I talk a lot. But listen, we do still have one more article to do, but I think we're going to save this until tomorrow. I think we'll do this one tomorrow. Oh, you want me to ban you too? Okay, bye. I want to do this article tomorrow because it's a rather long article. It's also not super time sensitive, but I think you guys are really going to appreciate this. So this is actually an Antifa demonstrator's guide to operational security. This is how they teach Antifa people in order to protest and stuff like that. They teach them all the things they need to know about being in the protest. They teach them how to wear masks and how to make t-shirts into masks and stuff like that. And so I think this is going to be a great article, but I really want to make sure I give this the attention it deserves. And we're going to do this tomorrow so that I have more time with it, which I think will be better for everyone. So does anyone have the InfoWars clip? Does anyone have it? I guess I could go on his website and find it. Hang on, we can watch the InfoWars clip real quick. InfoWars. Can anyone tell me when it was? I would have to find his show, I guess. Where's streaming? Where are the back episodes? Hang on, should I just look up Harrison's Twitter account or something? Maybe that would be the best place to start. Hang on. Harrison. So I imagine he will have his show here. American Journal. Okay. Let me see. Let me see if I can find the thing. Is this what the fuck is this? There's nothing here. Where is his show? Alex Jones, War Room, Is this his show? What is Harrison's show? I guess, is this what he's doing?
Stuff that had no.
Okay, so he's doing War Room. Where am I? Is the question. This is just a clip. Where do I find his show? Does anyone know where I actually find his show? This is just a clip.
I went on TikTok yesterday.
With
Complete
Nick.
nonsense.
Okay. I obviously don't know how the internet works today. I have no idea how to find this show. Does someone want to send me a link? I would love to watch the Harrison Smith thing. And well, in the meantime, guys, if you appreciate my work, please make sure you're supporting it. We will try to find the Harrison Smith thing. It's on, okay, Rumble, I guess. Okay, I'll have to look it up, I guess. But I do want to remind people, if you want to support the work I'm doing, please make sure you subscribe to the channel. Bro, I already went to InfoWars. I couldn't fucking find it. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel, guys. Please make sure you're supporting my work over on Substack. I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We do Socialism Saturdays on Saturdays at 6 p.m. I'm going to try to find the Harrison clip over on Rumble. So let's see. American Journal. Yeah, someone needs to send me a link. Someone needs to send me a link. I can't find it. I don't know where it is. I cannot fucking find it. This is way too difficult. Oh, I guess he has it in his profile. Never mind. I'm stupid. Never mind. I'm dumb. Let's see. Live. Nope, not on here either. Not on his YouTube channel, his Rumble channel either. So, nope, not on there. Literally, it's not on there. So, does anyone have a link? Does anyone know where I can actually find his show? Because I'm in his link tree. There is no link to his show. There's 500 people in the YouTube chat. Can someone figure out how to find Harrison's show? Because I can't figure out how to find it. Did he stream it to his Twitter feed? War Room is live. Okay, great. Where was it streamed live? Does anyone have a link? I can't watch it if I don't have a link. Okay, Alex is streaming right now on Rumble. Well, that is a clip. I was just on Rumble. Okay, we'll try again. This is really shitty on the part of InfoWars, by the way. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Okay, here is the Rumble stream.
Warns us it's overworked. This nutrient will change
I have to watch a fucking ad. Okay, it's a lot. Okay, another ad. Okay, great. Thanks, Rumble. Appreciate that. Okay, shitty ad. Okay.
Got a lot of.
Okay, here's Alex Jones on Nick. We appreciate Nick. We love Nick. All that stuff. Whatever. Nick is awesome. But what about me? But what about me? There's Nicholas.
You got
More Nick.
cannot
free America's weak while also expecting that we're going to draw on.
Okay, young Nicholas.
Nation they do way.
Purpose. There I am. Yay! Oh, he's doing the salting thing. He's talking about the salting thing. Holy shit. Yes, we are Nick respecters on this show. You don't have to like Nick, but we are Nick Fuentes respecters on this channel. Okay. Back to me.
That you don't have the same level of protest out there. Remember the first time Trump got elected, it was the pink hair women's march every weekend. I mean, they were out there in force constantly. And I think after 8 years of that, getting Kamala Harris and Joe Biden in return for all of your activism, the far left has decided, no, that's not worth it. We're not protesting anymore. We're going to move to direct action. And we actually know what their plans are, and they're sort of advertising them everywhere. And we have to take this seriously, and we have to treat this with the intensity it deserves in terms of understanding truly that the left is trying to do in America what they have successfully done all over the world, which is start a color revolution, which is just a modern manifestation of communist revolutions from 100 years ago. It's the same tactics. It's the same methods that they're using. And they're doing it in the open because it doesn't seem like anybody in power is aware of what they're doing or motivated to stop them.
So true,
which again, is
Harrison.
extremely disturbing. And I've got some videos to
So
illustrate this
true.
because we don't just know what they're planning on doing. We know the exact day they're planning to launch this attack. It's May Day 2028. And I'll explain exactly why in just a minute. Let's go to clip 35 here. This is, I believe her name is Karlyn Borysenko. I think her last name is Borysenko, and I'll get her exact Twitter account. She's been on this, very well, and we're gonna have to get her on to have a discussion about this. Clip 35 here. This is again the far left planning in the open to stage a genuine, full-fledged communist revolution in 2028. Just watch.
I'm Karlyn Borysenko. I'm an analyst and independent journalist covering the far left in America, and I'm about to tell you about the most terrifying thing the far left is doing that you don't know about yet. For the last 3 weeks, I've been attending SALT training with the Democratic Socialists of America. The idea of salting is the concept that socialists who want to control the unions will get their members jobs in strategic organizations like Amazon, like Starbucks, like groceries, like airlines, like automotive, like education. They will get their socialist friends jobs in these industries specifically with the purpose of them agitating to form unions and to get more workers into the unions within those organizations. And what attending these trainings has taught me is that the Democratic Socialists of America, through their labor caucus right here, they have a massive network of jobs all over the country where socialists are sitting in jobs in these organizations, and they hire their socialist friends, and then they put them through training, they put them through mentorship. They're not there to do a job. They don't really care about the job. They are there to organize, to form unions. So why is this important? There is a strategy on the left called May Day 2028. This is led primarily by the UAW, the United Auto Workers. But what this is the idea of a mass general strike. Essentially, the far left is trying to organize across all the labor unions, but with a really strategic focus on specific types of unions, because they want all the workers across all the unions to strike at the same time, May Day 2028, May 1st, 2028, in order to completely cripple society. What unions are they targeting? Well, this is from the form that the DSA had people fill out tonight. They're targeting education, they're targeting logistics, Amazon, UPS, they're targeting service industries like Starbucks and groceries. That was the most terrifying one, if I'm honest about it. The grocery industry, the food supply, oh great. They're targeting auto manufacturing, they're targeting airlines. And if you want to try to get a job in another industry, they'll probably help you out there. But those are the ones that they're specifically targeting because those are the ones that they believe are going to do the most damage when everyone goes on strike at exactly the same time 3 years from now. You know, one of the worst lies that the right has ever told people is that socialists don't have jobs, socialists are lazy, they just want everything handed to them for free, yada, yada, yada. Not only do socialists and communists have jobs, but they control the labor unions and they're building a massive job network to form new unions, all leading up to their little revolutionary event where they are literally going to try to cripple all of society just to demonstrate that they can. I beg people, please stop underestimating your enemy because they are literally planning out years in advance, building a massive organizational structure where they're getting socialist jobs in these strategic industries all over the country, and no one's talking about it because no one really knows about it. There are so many people who are not prepared at all for what the left is trying to do to our society. But people who follow my content and support my work, you're at the tip of the spear. You know this stuff before
I got
anyone
a
else
free
does.
ad
You can
on
find my work
InfoWars.
over at decodetheleft.com.
Bro.
You can also find me on Substack, Karlyn, Karlyn.substack.com. And if you want to talk to me about what the far left is up to, get in touch with me through this website. If you're a politician, if you're maybe someone in the government that, I don't know, maybe wants to do something about this, you let me know. Listen, man, I think one of the strongest things that we can do right now is for the government to hold congressional hearings into the political organizing activities of the unions. I am sick of anti-Semitism hearings. No more anti-Semitism hearings. I want congressional hearings into the political organizing activities of the unions because the unions are what is going to mess up our entire world, and it's where they're going to organize their little revolutionary event that is going to lead to a revolutionary crisis in this country.
I forgot I said that anti-Semitism thing.
And that is genuinely what they're planning on doing. And again, it is a cut and dry color revolution playbook that they're running. The George Soros, Saul Alinsky playbook.
No, not
They're
George
preparing
Soros,
for this.
Harrison.
They're setting a date 3 years in advance.
No,
it will be May 1st.
Not George. Okay. Harrison, thank you for playing my clip. I'm really honored. It's really amazing. I'm actually almost crying. I'm so happy that this information is finally getting out to people. But no, Harrison, no, this is not George Soros. We're gonna, Harrison, you and I are gonna have a long talk about this. We're so close. And now I have to be a killer of narratives. Oh no! That's okay. We still appreciate Harrison.
1st, 2028, that they intend to launch a communist revolution in this country. They're planning for it. They're getting ready for it. And by the way, this has almost succeeded in the past. I mean, it has succeeded in the past. There's a lot of elements of this that also occurred in the Russian Revolution. I think it's more aligned with something like what happened in Germany in 1918 with a communist revolution, which was exactly like this. You had, it was during war. The German authorities are very preoccupied with what's going on in the war. And actually it started with, in the Navy.
Okay, I guess that's enough. Damn, man. Damn. I've been on all these shows before. I've never been on InfoWars. I've never been on InfoWars, and this is really cool, actually. But I've been on a lot of big shows. I've been on Glenn Beck. I've been on Fox News. I've been on, all these big shows before. And, I never kind of but I was on all those shows a long time ago. I was on all those shows in 2020 when I was being propped up as the Democrat who left the left, the knitting Democrat or whatever. And I haven't had as much far-reaching coverage about my work that I've been doing for the past 4 years in a long time. And I got to be honest, for people who are newer to the channel, and I really appreciate all the new people to the channel. I appreciate all the people who are coming to the streams. You got to understand, I feel like I've been screaming into the void for years. And like I was like almost tearing up. I was like getting a little emotional, like that someone is actually listening and that people are actually listening now, because I really I feel like I've been screaming into the void for years. I feel like members of my community have been screaming into the void for years that we see this coming. We watch the far left every single day. We know what they're doing. We talk about it all the time. We have like group chats where we like talk about this stuff and pass information back and forth and all that stuff. We have been seeing this coming for a while, and I've been screaming and going, guys, here's what's going on, and no one has been listening. Yeah, this has been our struggle. This has been our struggle. For people who have been around for years, I bet you some of you are probably, I know Reagan's getting as emotional as I am because Reagan has put in so much work for this. You guys have no idea. You guys have no idea what longtime members of my community have done. You really don't. And so to have that be played on Harrison's show and to have him take it seriously and to tell his massive audience, this is what you need to pay attention to and this is what's happening. And I mean, to basically get a free ad for my work on InfoWars, that's pretty effing cool, honestly. But like, it honestly is like, it makes me really emotional. And I know I'm not supposed to be emotional because I'm supposed to be a mean bitch on the internet. I'm completely breaking character right now. I'm supposed to be a mean bitch on the internet. But like, it actually does make me very emotional that people are finally showing up and people are finally fucking listening, because I've been trying so hard for fucking years to like get people to listen and they wouldn't listen. Oh, man. You know, I was starting to question. Like people know this. Like I even said this at the beginning of this year. I said, you know what? I'm going to give this one more year, and if people don't start listening this year, I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. But now people are listening, and it's like all the years that I've been shouting into the void are finally kind of like coming together. And I just really appreciate it. I broke through the fucking wall. It took years of sheer willpower and screaming at the fucking sky. And I finally broke through. And again, I continue to be sad that it took Charlie Kirk getting assassinated for people to take this threat seriously. That really does make me sad. I wish it hadn't happened this way. But, you know, I'm very much a believer of like everything happens for a reason. And I know everything happens in its own best time. I know that everything happens in its own best time. I get it. But man, the last several years of covering this content and having no one listen have been really, really, really hard. I have basically driven myself insane listening to the far left. Like, you guys don't even know. You guys don't even know. So it feels really good that it's finally being acknowledged. And it feels really good to see so many new people on the channel and so many new people on the Substack and so many new people interacting with what I do. And I'm putting together ways for you guys to be able to like get up to speed faster. Actually, like as a reminder, if you are new to my work, if you're new to my work and you want a crash course in some of the things that we've seen and some of the things that we've done, what I want you to do is go over to the Substack and I want you to go to the How to Speak Socialist section and go to this re-education link. This is a free class that I put together with like a compilation of clips from leftist training and stuff like that. And I'll take the super chats in a second, guys. But it's really important, guys. If you haven't taken this class yet, it's totally free. It's a 90-minute class. It's called Re-Education and Anti-Communist Introduction to the Far Left. You can also find this on YouTube if you want it. And it is just a free 90-minute class where I walk you through like dozens of clips from far left trainings. So you guys can get like a crash course in this if you're newer to my work. Really important that you do this so you understand the language. You can also do the 4-hour masterclass. So this is a little bit longer, expanded version where we go into much greater detail about all of these things. So you'll find 2 videos, either each about a couple hours long, that will teach you this stuff. And if you're interested in more of, and one of the things that queer Marxist stuff, which queer is like the most dystopian form of Marxism, basically, you can find my introduction to queer Marxism over on the Substack as well, and also on the YouTube channel. And again, guys, it's really important that we start to understand our enemy. The reason I do all this stuff is I think it's desperately important for us to understand the enemy that we're fighting. And I think that many people on the right have been misinformed about what this is. And it's not your fault that you've been misinformed. It's really not your fault. You trusted people to tell you the truth and they didn't. But all I do is look at primary source evidence. So you can just see the primary source evidence for yourself and you can take away with it what you will. Let me get some of these super chats. Have I heard any info that they are there? Oh, and well, let's just keep it on the Substack. Have I heard any info if they're infiltrating or talked about the police unions? You know, that's a great question. Socialists do not like the police, so socialists are generally not a part of the police, like at all in any way. And so I would be surprised if they've done that. I have not heard anything about that. Thank you, Kristen. Appreciate it. Our Karlyn, all grown up. Yeah, well, isn't it funny that Harrison had my clip on the same day that they were talking to Nick? Isn't that funny? What a coincidence. Thank you, No Mayo. Appreciate it. Thank you, Shelly. Harrison wants you on his show. You can educate him. That's crazy. That'll be a good conversation. I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully it happens, you know? God bless, girl. Much. Thank you. Much love. Thank you, Drew. Drew has been supporting me for years, so thank you, Drew, for all that support. Hell yeah, Karlyn. We're so lucky to have you fighting and educating us. I appreciate that, Holly. Thank you. Average person, many in my little freedom community watch InfoWars. Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? All right, guys, that is going to do it for the show today. We will do that second Antifa article tomorrow so we can really give it the time it deserves. Thank you guys for coming out to the channel. I do appreciate it. If you haven't yet mounted the like button, please do so on the way out the door. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you have those notifications turned on. I will be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern time, and we'll talk more about Antifa then. Take care, guys. Have a good rest of your day, and we will see you soon.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.